Hello and welcome back to the American League Central Rundown. I am Eric, and with me today,
I'm Lee.
I'm Sam.
Oren.
And I'm Dan.
and we're now in week 3 of the season, and it has just been filled with so much joy and good baseball. With so much joy, let's just start off with we have some news to go over. None of it real great. So, uh, Lee, why don't you tell me who's on your injured list, and we're just gonna go around the division because it's a lengthy list at this point.
So the answer to who's on our injured list is all of our center fielders because Manny Margot is now on the injured list. I believe it's like a patellar tendon inflammation or something, but he's on the IL. So now the guy that we signed to back up all the center fielders we had that were injured is now injured. So that's fantastic. Um, we also, in bigger type news, Jake Rogers is on the IL. We got that news approximately 20 minutes after the Manny Margot news, so that was a very fun half hour for us. It was a left oblique strain, and AJ Hinch has said that he's probably going to be on the IL for about a month at least. So that's pretty rough because he's a really good defensive catcher. He's really good like working with the pitchers and everything. So it was also because he was injured an hour before school will start against the Yankees. So that was a little scary for a bit. But Dingler seems to be settling in terms of being the primary catcher. And with Rogers on the IL, we pulled up Tomas Nido, who's a veteran backup catcher guy. So he seems to be very good with calling pitches and stuff. In terms of bat, there's not really much there, but the more important part is what he adds as a catcher. So that's my news there.
Right, well, I feel for you on your center fielder. Manuel Margot was may he rest in peace. He was horrible for the Twins last year, so it was only a matter of time before he let you down.
He was doing good offensively. He was actually hitting really well. Like defensively, maybe not the greatest, but he was he was a decent bat. And then
Was his batting average still higher than his on or lower than his on base or higher than his on base percentage like it was last week? Because
let's see.
yes.
It was his on base percentage still lower than his batting average.
Well, whatever double he tried to stretch, a single he tried to stretch, it clearly failed. Because I even think his slugging percentage equaled his batting average, so it's a bunch of singles.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know why I decided to hate on Manny Margot today, but it's a decision I made. I'm sticking with it.
Do you not get on base percentage if you get thrown out trying to stretch a play?
No, it's sack flies that does that. It's when you have more sack flies.
Oh, okay.
So he got a hit, so he gets credit for it, but because he wasn't on, and he must have stretched a single into it, tried to stretch it into a double because he wasn't thrown out, so he wasn't on base, but he gets credit for a hit.
I see. Okay.
Is a little quirk in the batting average type.
You know the
you-
little quirk about Manny Margot?
That's
He was
not-
like
you don't
0
get you
for
don't get on
30.
base percentage if you get caught down. Is that true?
If you try to stretch something and you get caught down, yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that was news to me like last year. I was like, oh, wait a minute. So that counted as a hit, even though, because I think I saw someone try to stretch a double into a triple, but it counted as a hit, but he was still thrown out.
It would count as a double, and then the triple is where he would lose the point. The only reason I know that is because I used during a drunk league softball team, I decided I was going to keep stats, and that happened a shocking amount of time.
In a drunk softball league, no.
Yeah, who would have thought? A bunch of former quote unquote athletes playing slow pitch softball. Who would have thought? The injured list probably was shorter than what the AL Central list is right now. Moving on to the Twins, the team that is known for being injured, they're starting to pile up, but they did have somebody come activated. So the new one that just happened in the last day or so, Matt Wallner, who's been starting to heat up, is going on the IL with a hamstring strain. I believe they're officially putting him on the IL either tonight or tomorrow morning. And his replacement is going to be Jonah Bride, who is a kind of a journeyman infielder for the Marlins. he's just a warm body at this point. They don't want to call up. They do have a prospect they could use to replace for an infielder, Luke Keeschel, but he's coming back from Tommy John surgery and he's just started playing full games. He was playing like 7 inning games at second base. He's had a really good start, but they're not ready to pull that trigger yet. Kind of older news, Pablo Lopez also went on with a hamstring strain. Seems like it's pretty minor. It was more hamstring tightness, but because he's in the rotation, they needed to put someone on the IL to replace him. I talked about in our season preview that the Twins had 3 legitimate prospects that they could just fill in if need be. They chose David Festa, who was one of those prospects. He's come in, he's had 2 starts. He's looked pretty good. We're going to talk about that in the Tigers game because I have an issue with the decision that was made, but it's fine. It's one decision in a crappy season, but he's been called up. He looks pretty good, but was probably 2 or 3 starts is all. Brooks Lee was activated, and in retention, Jose Miranda, who I went on quite a long tangent last week, got sent down, and then adding insult to injury, he was in AAA, in Target, carrying a case of water, dropped it and hurt his wrist, so he's now on the minor league injured list. So the poor guy can't catch a break at this time.
I mean, imagine if like Pete Alonso went to Citibank and then like tripped and sprained his ankle.
Hurt his finger entering in his PIN number.
Yeah, that's what you get for buying single-use plastics.
Yeah, there
It
is.
serves him right. That's really what it is. That jerk who's done nothing and seems like a perfectly fine person. And then there is a small one. I hesitate to mention it, but Carlos Correa did leave the same game as Wallner with a wrist. They're not even saying like injury. They're saying like, I don't even think concern is too strong of a word, but something has been non-painfully messing with his wrist. We'll see if anything happens from that. At least it's not plantar fasciitis, so I guess that's a step in the right direction. So that's the Twins. Sam, who's wearing a cast for Kansas City?
Pretty decent injury luck to start out the year. Not a whole lot of injuries to guys who you would consider to be integral to the team at the very least. We saw Mark Canha had a little nagging injury that he sat out for a few days, went down to AAA, made AAA Omaha, made a rehab start on Tuesday. Hunter Harvey was injured most of last year. He's gotten off to a pretty good start this year, but he went down to the injured list with a grade 1. They're calling it a grade 1 right teres major strain, and he will be reevaluated sometime this week. So those 2 injuries are kind of the ones that players who were off to decent little starts that you don't want to see, but hopefully those 2 guys will be back pretty soon. But the one that I think is the most interesting and most noteworthy would be Sam Long, who Sam Long was put on the injured list a couple days ago. He has gotten off to a horrible start. His ERA is 12.86 to start the
Yeesh.
year. He's given up 10 runs in 7 innings, and he had a decent little season last year with the Royals. Decent little cup of coffee. Had some good, moments. Had a 3.16 ERA in 42 innings. So not too bad for him last year, but for most of his career, he's been a mop-up guy and a sort of late inning, someone has to be on the mound type guy. And so I think it'll be interesting to see if he just stinks now, and they said you can either be injured or you can be cut, or if
Oh,
he
funny.
really, was not pitching that well because of his injury. So those guys, they brought up Drew Waters, they brought up Steven Cruz, and they brought up Evan Sisk, who are all going to get chances in the big leagues now. So good for those guys. But injury-wise, not a ton of noise with the Royals. And then hopefully, according to at least according to Ann Rodgers, it looks like Kyle Wright might be on his way back, making some rehab appearances in Arizona. So hopefully he can come and be the guy he was a couple of years ago for the Braves. So that's the Royals injury report right
Wait,
there.
hold up. Back up a minute. Is this a body part that I've never heard of? What is a teres strain?
So it's pronounced
Trace?
Teres, and it
Okay.
is a
I believe it's a shoulder
it's
muscle.
like the
Some sort of-
muscle. It's like this muscle kind of in your underarm right here. So that's he has a grade 1 strain of his right teres. So that is not a part of the body that I was familiar with either. So
You'd think being right there, you'd hear about it more in baseball injuries. I wonder why you don't.
Yeah, I mean that's a
yeah,
part of the arm. You think pitchers would go down to that kind of thing more often.
I will say, I mean, not that my experience is really comparable, but having a lot of arm pain from throwing baseballs over the years, it really is kind of, and when when it's in the right spot, and it never is really down here.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, but no, I didn't pay attention in anatomy class apparently. So
Didn't even go to. You're not even a doctor on TV.
no. Shout out to high school anatomy class, Mrs. Rogers.
Is it the beat reporter for the Royals? Isn't that? Was it Ann Rodgers? You just known her the entire
Oh
time.
no.
Next, no. So we're gonna head to Chicago next. I don't think they have really injury news, but somebody's gonna get called up here in a bit because it sounds like Chicago is about to call up a prospect here. Edgar Quiero.
Yeah.
Oren, do you know much about him?
Yeah, so we got him. He sent that. What's that reliever's name? He was on the Astros and he was on the White Sox briefly. He was like kind of an all right. He's had an all right career for a reliever.
Oh, Stanek.
No, I forgot the name of this. Oh my god, it's gonna kill me. But whatever. It was a deadline deal last year that we got him from the Astros. Corey Lee got hurt. He rolled his ankle against the Guardians, and was then tagged out by Carlos Santana. Well, he got back to the base, but rolled his ankle doing it, and then he got caught off the bases, so he was out. I can't blame Santana for that, obviously. But it was funny because the other injury, Mike Talkman, happened in a situation where it was probably going to tie the game, and he was rounding the base, coming around third, and also against the Guardians, I believe.
Yep.
And he pulled up limp while he was rounding third base, and he got tagged out to end the game. So those two guys and Benintendi, those are the kind of the main injuries the Sox are dealing with now. But Quiero could be the catcher of the future. He's got kind of seen as a lower ceiling than Kyle Teal, who we got from Boston in the Garrett Crochet trade. I think he's a switch hitter, yeah. And he's, for a catcher, he's put up some decent numbers in the minors, I guess.
Off to a good start this year, at least.
Yeah. And so, it'll be fun to see a new young guy around. And hopefully Corey Lee gets back because I like him, and catching is one of those positions where going forward, we have a couple guys in the minors. So, maybe we'll trade one of them. Maybe we'll get, Corey Lee will leave at one point. Who knows? But it'll be cool to see Quiero and see what he looks like.
Yeah, awesome. And he was part of the Crochet trade, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Did you mention that? Okay.
Or Quiero was what is the name of this pitcher? Not Johnson.
It's gonna haunt your dreams until you look it up. So while you're looking that up, Dan, how's it going in Cleveland? Who's hurt there?
So we actually haven't had anybody that actually entered the injured list.
You jerk.
But opening day, our opening day, which is the last opening day of any team in the league this year, April 8th, Lane Thomas, I believe fourth inning, something to that effect, was hit on the wrist, hit by pitch, and was out with, I believe it was just a badly bruised wrist for the entire homestand. So he was out the entirety of last week. and like I said, was not placed on the injured list. In order to replace him on the field, though, he was essentially a sole center fielder on the roster. The Guardians demoted Jonathan Rodriguez, who was a corner outfielder, hadn't really done much in his handful of at-bats so far this year, and ended up promoting Angel Martinez, who largely was playing center field in the minors, can also play kind of all over, including the infield. But he was taking the reps in center field for the last week. We'll talk about him potentially a little bit later on how he's impressed so far. But long story short, Thomas was back in the lineup today after pinch hitting last night. They've eased him back in, and he should be good to go moving forward. So full circle there, where he did depart for about a week, but is back on the mend and back in the lineup tonight.
Yeah, fair enough. Oren, did you find it as you're right in the middle of taking a drink of water? Good for me.
Yeah, well, I didn't find the Astros pitcher name because I was thinking of the wrong trade entirely. We got him from the Angels along with Kai Bush in exchange for Giolito and Lopez during the 2023 trade deadline. So that's where he came from.
Nah, mystery solved.
So,
Also, good for me as a point person to see you drinking a big thing of water and then call right to you. So good for me.
I'll be in my most hydrated. It was perfect.
All right, anyway, so I just wanted to go over, just moving on, I wanted to go over the standings really quickly, and then we actually had quite a bit of games, so we have a few recaps to go over. So just looking at the division, it has been wild. Wild's probably a bit too strong, but this has changed a lot really within the last, 48, 72 hours, as it tends to do in April. But the Guardians are winning by percentage points as far as a division winner right now. They've actually just crossed the run differential to positive, so they've joined Detroit as the only other team that's done that in the division. Detroit has the most wins in the division, but again are less than a tenth of a percentage point away from winning. It's not like Detroit has played it all that bad. They've gone 6-4 in their last 10, but Cleveland is definitely on a surge. They've gone 7-3, and they look real dangerous right now.
We would like to note that at this time, Cleveland is currently losing 5-1 against the Orioles. So those standings will change in about an hour. As a Guardians hater, I have to put that out there. So the crown stands for 4 hours.
Pulling back the curtain for a second, I was pretty smug in our group Discord a little bit ago about Guardians being on top. That's looking like it very well may be short-lived unless there's a rally here down 5-1 to Baltimore tonight. But we'll be back. It'll be all right.
Are the Tigers not playing tonight?
They played and then they lost, so 5-1 to the Brewers.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a sucky loss. Anyway.
Next up, and playing not their best baseball, both the Royals and the Twins are it looks like a game and a half apart, both with equal run differentials, but somehow different expected win-losses. I'm going to assume someone else has played another game. And then the White Sox are back in the cellar. But if you even go back 72 hours, the Twins were actually the worst in the division, because I think that in the last couple games, they've won 3 out of their last 4. And it was real dire. But we can go over that because we're about to go into some recaps. But before I do that, I have some time to cry in my beer, because the first one we're going to go over is actually Cleveland visited Chicago. No, sorry, Chicago visited Cleveland over the weekend. So if you are watching this on YouTube, we do have just the Baseball Savant pages, just kind of what happened, the win probability and all of that. If you're on the audio version of this, hopefully we do a good job enough explaining what happened in the series. But Dan, Oren, what were your thoughts during watching this?
I can start. So, from the Cleveland perspective, great outcome in all 3 of these games. Ended up getting a full sweep of the series. Like I said, this was our opening week at home. But at the same time, this, from our perspective, was a sloppy series that, honestly, where we were at a week ago, didn't instill a lot of confidence. You got to remember, we came home after a 9-game road trip. We're 3-6. Come home, play the White Sox. Okay, it's time to look a little less lethargic. And we won all 3 games, but they happened in this fashion. Opening day was a 1-0 victory in which nobody scored on either team until the 9th, and the win was a walk-off win on a walk. So about as futile as you can get in terms of offense. Ended up getting the W, but still. Following day is the aforementioned Mike Talkman game that Orrin was talking about a moment ago. Guardians are up 3-1 going into the 9th. Emmanuel Clase, lockdown closer, comes in to close it out and proceeds to give up multiple base hits. On that final base hit of the ball game, 1 run scores. Talkman comes running around third, blows out his hamstring and is tagged out. If not for that, it would have been a tie ball game. Who knows what happens from there? Game 3 of the series, a little bit better. The first inning was really sloppy. Gavin Williams walked in a run. There was a wild pitch involved. After that, things seemed to settle down a little bit. That was a little bit more of a distinctive victory. And so, all's well that ends well there. But at that point in time, 6-6, but didn't really feel like 6-6 as a record.
Not a good moral victory in terms of
Exactly.
Yeah, it was it was not a good series for either team, but it's kind of expected for the White Sox. It was a closer series than you'd expect. So, though it was a sweep, I get why Cleveland is not feeling super confident after that. But again, that was a week ago. Things changed a lot in a week since then. Looks like they've been heating up. So,
all right, not for nothing. Just looking at, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I really like the expected numbers. So just the expecting batting average on all of these, and it looks like by some miracle I have messed up the order of the games because that was not. If you look at the records for the Guardians, that should not be in that order, but we're going to ignore that. But the expecting batting average for the last game, the 1-0 game of 172 and 192, it's just that had to be a difficult game to watch. And even the 6-1 run, it looks like Chicago was much closer to the 6-1. And the 6-1 game looks like, I'm going to assume they missed a couple opportunities, or am I wrong there?
yeah, it's about accurate. And also, it looks like kind of league-wide we're seeing the same trends that we saw last year in terms of offense. Looks like it's going to be another pitcher's year, despite the torpedo bats. I don't know. Something's got to give at some point. The league definitely wants offense. They've been talking about, different rule changes, maybe moving the mound back, lowering the mound, stuff like that. I don't know, or we'll see if it's just kind of the way the pendulum swings and it naturally turns back to a hitting environment. But it's weird with the batting averages, especially because the advanced metrics that they're looking at are changing, so batting average isn't important. But still, it's shocking to see these numbers league wide, like having so many teams with team batting averages like under 200.
Right.
One thing I just add to that real quick is, at least for us in the Midwest, it's been unseasonably cold.
Yeah.
This spring. It's been a cold spring. I was curious of it because I was looking it up for something else. At least here in Cleveland, the average temperature in April is something like 54 degrees last year. And this year it's 48. Mm-hmm. So something to that potentially. It's kind of a cliche. I'll wait for the bats to warm up. It's too cold out. But there's something to that to a point, I think. And I think it can affect, aggregate offense like that.
Right.
Yeah,
I think
our home the series against the Yankees, all those times were moved up because they're supposed to be night games, but it was it snowed during one of those games. It was freezing. It was 25 degrees.
That 1-0 walk-off walk was on a 35-degree day here. Ugh. Sold out, opening day, sold out, 35 degrees. That's what all the people came out to see. It was fantastic.
Does anyone know? Because I know it's a pretty common, the worst offensive months in baseball is always April, and then as the weather warms up, like you guys are saying, it gets better. But does anyone know what the average what an average OPS is right now? I haven't even looked that up. You would think I would somehow have looked that up, but
I've got Baseball Reference up. So this is a Baseball Reference from technically yesterday. But the league average OPS is 696 currently.
Yeah, that's low.
Well, can you get what last year's April was?
I don't know how to get month by month.
I think you need
I might have to dig for that.
But
I'm on it.
Either way, it's low.
Yeah. Last year, the average OPS was 711.
Okay.
And that was for the whole year. So.
Interesting. Wouldn't that be
Crazy
something if
times.
April was somehow higher or higher last year? But well, so, while you guys are looking those up, the next series I wanted to cover, Cleveland visited Kansas City visited Cleveland, and I think I actually got the dates right in this one. And it looks like this is when Cleveland was really starting to take off. So, Sam and Dan, how did you feel watching this series?
Um, I think this was a moment where I was kind of hoping that the Royals would get right and be able to string some good performances together. And really, it was more of the same from what we've seen from them throughout most of the year. Um, Decent pitching until it's not especially in the 7-0 game. Not closing out games, missing out on opportunities, and then having to save the series in the final game. So I was very frustrated watching this series because there were moments where the Royals had chances to, win some of these two games that they lost, but it just wasn't. It was very sloppy to borrow what Dan said about his team in the previous series, and a lot of guys who were not performing to their highest.
Yeah, on our end of things, first of all, this is where kind of it felt like finally Guardians that we remembered from last year were starting to show up a little bit. Helps that ultimately here they won 5 in a row at one point, even if you count the White Sox games, and really two kind of unexpected contributors really helped benefit in those two wins. Gabriel Arias, who I've talked about a little bit on previous iterations, starting at second base so far this year. We'll talk about him potentially a little bit later on too. But him and Angel Martinez, who I also mentioned being called up, playing center field, combined in those two games, those two gentlemen went 11 for 15, 8 RBIs, 2 doubles, 2 home runs amongst them, hitting in the 6 and 7 spots in the order. So those two guys carried in a big way. It's encouraging for both of them as young players to be contributing like that. Obviously, it's just a couple of games, but so far so good on that. Then came to Sunday, and they just ran into Cole Reagans. Like he did a fantastic job. He was carving them up, and he was going to be hard to beat for anybody.
He looks really good.
He does look
Yeah,
really
and that's one of those moments where that there are guys with a capital G on this
Mhm.
team, and you're going to have games where those guys are guys, but you need more. The Royals need more performance. The Royals need better performances from the guys with lowercase G's, if that
your
Little
if that
guys.
makes
your
sense.
Arias's and your
So,
Martinez's essentially those guys. Your guys down the order, your relief pitching, etc. I will say to the point that Stan made about sloppy play, the 2 runs we scored in that Sunday game where Reagans pitched came on a little league home run.
yep.
Oh, that's fun.
So yeah, Daniel Sheeman. I believe that was probably scored a double would be my guess.
It was scored a double,
Yeah,
and then Bobby got the ball on the relay throw and threw it away, and so yeah, he was able to come around for a little league home run, and that was 2-0. But to the credit of Cole Reagans, he immediately settled down,
he did.
immediately got out of the inning, and then the Royals immediately responded. So that was a positive. That sequence, as much as I as much as I hated to see it, I think they responded appropriately, and that's good to see.
Yeah, that was a good bounce back and quality win for you guys. Genuinely, the only other observation I have is, and this is like understatement, Captain Obvious stuff, but the Guardians have struggled against elite pitching so far this year. Reagans, Michael King, and Dylan Cease. They've lost to all three, which, duh. But sometimes you can be competitive against those type of guys. They haven't really shown that so far this year.
Well, and even if everyone wants to believe their team's going to make the playoffs, and yes, Michael King and Cease are in the National League, so for the Guardians to face them in the playoffs, it's obviously a pretty good outcome.
Yeah.
But you need to compare your lineup against playoff caliber pitching, and if you lay an egg for those, it's real hard to believe in a team. So
Yeah, Tigers got absolutely shut down by Max Fried, like 11 strikeouts, and it's like, I mean, the offense is looking good, but if you're gonna get 11 strikeouts against a guy like that you would face in the playoffs, it's hard sometimes. It's like, ooh,
It's a fair
how
point.
it's gonna go.
Yeah, I think I saw in the standings every team is a losing record against teams above 500.
Oh yeah, I've seen that
That
too.
makes sense.
I hear that's been going quite a run too for like the last history of baseball. Anyway, so we're kind of doing the dates a little bit out of order, but I thought Sam needed a morale boost after talking about the Cleveland, so I really wanted to talk about when the Twins played Kansas City because when we were predicting the last time we recorded, I said I almost thought that I shouldn't pick. I picked a split, but I almost had Kansas City winning 3-1, and boy, did it came to life. It was real sad. Sam, what did you think watching this?
I felt pretty good about this series overall. I mean, obviously, you win 3 out of 4 against one of the teams in your division. You're gonna feel pretty good about that. I think, obviously, there are no style points, but I would have liked to see them score more than 4 runs in one of these games in this series. It's frustrating when you feel positive about a series, but you scored 4 runs, 2 runs, 0 runs, and 3 runs.
Well, I
So,
wanted
and
to
in
talk.
one of those games, you had 3 hits.
What I wanted, because like that was when I was looking at this, I wanted to say like the Twins offense is lifeless, and then if you actually add up the score to all of these games, the Royals and the Twins both put up 9 runs in 4 games, which is not
Hmm.
good in any metric. Like it doesn't like this especially on the Twin side of it. This was such a hard series to watch because the Twins' offense is just lifeless at points. I think
Hmm.
I've talked about it before. Like they're not even putting up good at bats. We're talking 8-10 pitch innings, and then it's back in the dugout.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's one thing for the bats to be cold. Obviously, you're going to have stretches where the players aren't, the batters aren't firing on all cylinders. And I think that's a good sort of metaphor for the way the Royals have started the year, is that they're not firing on all cylinders. But
Mhm.
when you have guys like Salvador Perez, Bobby Witt Jr., Vinny Pasquantino, other guys who are decent major league players who are getting off to slow-ish starts, and then you also have guys who are just complete albatrosses in the bottom of the lineup, where you look at guys like NJ Melendez, Hunter Renfroe, Michael Massey, who I think is an okay player. But guys like this, who you're just penciling them in for a strikeout every time they come up. You're just expecting to see them swing at pitches in the dirt every time they come up. That's the part that's concerning to me. The bats being cold is one thing, but having guys who just look like someone from someone coming off from the street to play Major League
Right.
Baseball is the part that concerns me going forward. And when we talked about injuries and we talked about Canna having his rehab start, it'll be interesting to see if one of these guys who hasn't been performing, um, if the clock runs out when he's recalled to the team. So I hate to be doom and gloom and call for guys to be cut, but I think that's I think the
Right.
time has come to wake and run and not give way to fear.
Well, I mean, typically, like teams will start making changes around the 1 month, 6 week mark. So like, and we're not, yes, we're 3 weeks into this, but we're halfway through that timeline. So like, I think I didn't look at anything other than I was looking at the Royals, like team page, and I saw Hunter Renfroe has a negative .9 WAR. That doesn't play in any way sense. One thing I did want to point out during this series too that it's also concerning is Sam. I don't know if you saw it. There was just a lot of mental mistakes on both, like
Yeah.
easy like plays, like Griffin Jacks on the game on the 7th. He came in. I think they was it Bobby on first, and they threw the and Jacks just airmails the throw from the
Threw the
pitcher's
ball
mound.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, over first base, and it cost them a run there. And I believe the last game, Harrison Bader had a nice play in center field, but like it was a catchable play, and he ended up doubling up Bobby Witt on second base.
Yeah.
Just and that's
Well, yeah, and that was one of those ones where, Bobby was stealing, and
is that what it was?
yeah, Bobby was stealing, and then, Salvi hits the ball to the outfield and it gets caught. And so it's just, yeah, stuff like that has been happening a lot, and it's um, looking at MJ Melendez, he's got
Does
4 hits in 43 at bats this year.
ouch.
374 OPS. I'm pretty sure he's 0 for 2 today with 2 strikeouts. So,
Not great.
yeah.
One thing from that series, though, is there was a fun John Boy breakdown. I only saw it yesterday, but how'd you guys feel about that? Did you lose respect or gain respect for any of the guys on your team or the other team?
You're talking to Simeon Woods Richardson?
Yeah, he blew a kiss, gave up a hit, and then mimed a bunt at Isbell, and then Isbell got a bunt hit against him, and he like tripped and he kind of looked kind of embarrassed on it. And then the next time he came up, he like mimed the bunt at him, and he just hit like a home run off of him. So that was
I don't really know too much about Simeon Woods Richardson, and if he's someone who frequently acts in this manner. I mean, you can tell me, Eric, but I didn't think of him as someone who was, a trash talker. But yeah, that was very odd that he was behaving that way. And Kyle Isbell is a player who I have liked and have thought is a pretty okay player. And he's gotten off to a decent start, and he's had some moments in his career where he's looked pretty good. So it was interesting, and he's not a talker either, as far as I have seen. So it was interesting to see 2 guys who I don't really think of as being, trash talkers who were behaving this way. But it was, that was an odd sequence.
I don't think, not that I've noticed, but I'm definitely going to be watching it from here on out. But Simeon Woods Richardson doesn't, like, the blowing the kiss thing was just weird, which makes me think there's probably was some chirping between the dugouts. Like,
yeah, like a lot of time, like there's stuff like going on in the background. Like a lot of these guys, like they talk to each other. They have like each other's phone numbers. They text. Like, is there stuff going on that's, they're trash talking each other and they're each other's Instagram DMs or something.
And I thought, just looking at it, I was like, I don't know, maybe they're friends, and that could have been like a funny thing, or it could have even been to a middle infielder based on the angle I saw. I didn't see that it was definitely to the base runner, but if it was, and then we don't know the backstory there. But
and what's weird to me is like Simeon Woodruff, he seems to be like a fairly humble person, and like I'm not saying like when you're competitive and like juices are going, like I'd like to think I'm fairly humble too, but I have trash talked like and probably over talked. Like I think we're all kind of guilty at that at some point. But let's be honest, if he needs a reality check, his ceiling is a 4th starter in the majors. He's not high caliber. So if you're going to blow a kiss to someone and you throw 93, like you better be able to, like, you better get them out, because he looked so stupid. He also, I think that might have been that same game, and if it wasn't, it's the same week, he had a pitch clock violation because his brain melted and Rocco ended up getting tossed from the
Oh
game.
yeah, that was so weird. I was watching that. I was like, what just happened?
He also has a balk, which I now know that is 3 balks on Twin starters in the first 3 weeks, and I don't think they had 3 all last year. So I don't know this team is just getting in its own way. I don't know if they're just, I mean, we've seen the record. It's not going well if they're trying too hard, but why blowing a kiss was a way to get in the other team's head, I don't know. It was weird. It was weird and I didn't like it. Anyway, Sam, did you have any other thoughts on that series, or it seemed like a very
No,
well,
I just think, yeah, as I said, it's you're never gonna be you took 3 out of 4 from your division, from a division rival, and that's great, but the level of play really leaves something to be desired,
yeah.
specifically from the hitters.
Right. What I will say about Kansas City is they did enough. Like, the Twins are already knocked down, and they kept knocking them down, which is like something that I feel like the Twins have not been able to do over the last couple of years. When they have the advantage, they don't really take advantage of it. The Royals did in this series. Now, it's only the first matchup between them, but Kansas City they won 3 out of 4 against a team that looked very beatable. So good for them. Next up, I need to have another drink. The Twins played the division-leading Detroit Tigers, and it really wasn't pretty. I felt, and Lee, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. The game on April 11th, where the 7-6, the Twins had that MFing game and just gave it away. And then the second game, there was really nothing I could really say to that. But Lee, what did you see watching this series?
Yeah, so disclaimer for the first part. So April 11th, I could only watch that via the MLB Game Day stuff on my app. I went back and watched the highlights later. But so pitching-wise, I'll talk about the pitching first and then I'll talk about the offense. So pitching-wise, for the first game, Reese Olson didn't really have his best stuff. He's still looking kind of all over the place with his not getting enough strikes, but also it looked like the home plate umpire was not exactly helping him at all because Dan Dickerson was complaining on the radio about how it seemed really tight. But Job looked really good on day 2. That was his best outing so far. The first career win, first quality start. So that was really good to see. It's also a little bit of, well, the Twins' offense has been very anemic lately, but still good for him, like confidence-wise, to go out there, not give up any runs, not give up too many hits and walks. That was good. In terms of offense, in day 1, I'd like to note we won that game, scored 7 runs with our best hitters, Torque, Green, and Carpenter, not getting a hit, which is very reassuring because a common theme last season, excluding like the last 2 months as much, if Green and Carpenter weren't hitting, the rest of the team was not hitting. So to see us get a win and a good win at that with those guys not performing as well is good because we need the rest of the team besides the 2, 3, 4 hitters to be able to perform. Also, in terms of the rest, I think Spencer Torkelson just hates the state of Minnesota. I think he hates Joe Mauer too because he's hit 2 home runs this season and he's got that thing a couple of years ago where he fouled off a ball and it knocked off a part of the plaque. And it's a...
Oh, that's right. I do remember.
Yeah.
He did have, on that same note, Joe Mauer got his statue outside of Target Field this week, and the way Torkelson was hitting the ball, he was trying to hit it in the parking lot because he had he had an at-bat. I can't remember which game it was, but he missed 2 home runs in the same at-bat by like a foot. And then I think the next inning, he just hit the 3rd deck, which in Target Field and left field is not as impressive as it seems, but it was launched with authority.
That was destroyed. That's one of those where, like, as soon as it like left his bat, you're like, oh, and he pimped it too, which was really
Yeah, he did. And good. If I hit the ball like that, I'd pimp it too. I like he didn't like do like a hands up thing. He like kind of did like this. He said F yeah, like doing like the muscle pose, like, but to his dugout, and I was like, yeah, if I could do that, that would be how I would react.
Yeah, that was the only run we scored that game. It was, yeah, Torkelson was really good this series. He didn't get a hit in the first game, but he scored 3 out of 4 runs this game too, and scored the only run in the third game. In terms of the third game, we just couldn't get anything started. Who was pitching? Was that Woods Richardson?
Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't get anything. He looked like he was looking really good, and we just couldn't get anything at bat wise. What was I gonna say?
I would also say, like, going on that same, so Woods Richardson looked that game too. I know I've talked about Louis Varland a couple times. He struck out the side on 12 pitches. He looked dominant. Like, he looked like which in a season that hasn't been gone well for the Twins at all, like, to see someone live up to at least a potential for an inning, because I've used him a lot and it's been kind of various results, but to kind of see that potential has been really nice. I'm going to put on my nitpicking armchair manager hat for just a minute. I typically don't criticize manager decisions because they're all 50-50 coin flips anyway, so I don't want to make it seem like I certainly know more than Rocco, but the game on the 11th, you will notice, I'll pull it up here, you will notice around the 6th inning, the game flipped. The Twins kind of had the game going their way, and then in the 6th inning, so that was actually the first game that Lopez missed. So David Festa, he was in the 5th inning, so he had four runs or 4 innings, and there was 2 outs in the 5th, right? He gets 2 guys on. He's at 64 pitches. He's a rookie. The Twins are very conservative whenever a rookie pitcher is in the mound. Last year, Simeon Woods Richardson, he wouldn't even sniff the 3rd time through the lineup. And the Tigers, it wasn't quite the 3rd time through the lineup, but it was near the bottom. There were 2 guys on. He had 64 pitches. They pull him. Okay. His last pitch he ended up seeing, I believe, was actually an error by Matt Wallner, who threw the ball from right field, and it skipped the entire infield and went into the dugout, and that's how the Tigers scored their first run. So
that was so weird because I was looking on the app and it was like traveled like a -2-degree launch angle. Gleyber Torres at 3rd. I'm like, how?
And the way you look at like Festa's backing up the pitch, he's backing up as he should, but he wasn't in the right position. And like, here's the thing, I'm not gonna tell you like I'm a big like strategic master, but if I'm a pitcher backing up the pitch, yes, you're gonna see like where Wallner is throwing, you're gonna go at that angle, but like the worst possible thing that can happen is the ball goes into the dugout, and Festa is like 3 feet, almost as like the goalie ole as the ball goes into the dugout. So whatever, that it's a play. So Baldelli, Rocco pulls Festa with 1 out in the 5th, or with 2 outs in the 5th, for a left-hander Colomb. He gets Sweeney, who's a left-handed hitter. The Colomb throws 6 pitches. The next inning, they pull Colomb, the lefty, because they have Torres and Baez coming up. And then they immediately go into the third part, the meat of the lineup. Carpenter, Green, and Torkelson after that. Alcala has horrible luck against lefties, and sometimes he has a lot of control issues. So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find my stat here. So they bring in Alcala, who has a career OPS of 632 against righties when he can throw a strike. Against lefties, his OPS against is 739, which is 103 points higher. 106 points higher than his opponents against. And he doesn't get an out. He gives up 4 runs. The Twins bring in Justin Topa. By that time, the game is over. The Twins only have 1 lefty, but it's not like they knew that. It's not like they didn't know that going in. Why would you not just leave up Danny Colome, who threw 6 pitches, and just let him go through? I disagree with the call, but there's my rant. I looked up those 2 stats, so I had to say them on the air.
Yeah, like when I was watching, I was like, why did they pull Festa? Because he was doing really good against the Tigers.
Yeah.
The Tigers couldn't really get anything on him. It seemed really weird from my standpoint of watching balls go at a screen and see where they hit on the strike zone. But
Well, what's interesting, like I said, they're very conservative with rookie pitchers, but it might have been 10 days ago in our Discord chat, people were wondering, why is Simeon Woods Richardson on his 110th pitch on like the 7th inning? And he's on his second year of service time. So like, it's not like they're against
like he's
guys
consistent
going
with it.
deep. Right. It was a weird call. Now, who's to say Alcala, if he wasn't on, doesn't strike out the side and everything is fine, and I have no gripes. But it just seemed like a really interesting call to me in the moment. But it is what it is.
To get 6 pitches out of your only lefty and have them not be against the best lefties.
Yes. And I understand they did have Javier Baez, who, let's be honest, free swinger, and you have Torres. Torres is a threat, especially this year. But then you have Kerry Carp. You have your 2 best lefties. You have 1 lefty in the bullpen. If you're not going to use that lefty on those 2 people, what do you have a lefty for? Or why do you bring in a guy who has a 739 career against OPS against? And by the way, that 739, they will spot him against really crappy lefties, not good lefties. Yeah. Am I making too much out of one roster or one bullpen decision?
So wait, you might have said this and I might have missed it, but what was the decision you think should have been made?
They should have just kept Colome in. He threw 6 pitches the inning before.
Okay, yeah.
Heeman got the 1 out and then left. It was
Anyway, rant over. Let's talk about a better subject here, because as doom and gloom as we just went over these series recaps, Cleveland seems to be very happy, and everyone else seems to be kind of in the dumps. But despite that, the pitching for the American League Central has actually been quite good. So I just looked up career ERA for the season. Kansas City has the best American League ERA for a staff. Detroit is 3rd. Cleveland is 4th. And then bringing up Minnesota 8th. And then Chicago was 10th. Even within the last couple of days, Chicago was actually flipped with Minnesota. But Minnesota in the last week, if you actually alter in the last week, they're actually 2nd in the American League. So pitching somehow in this division, even knowing that offense is down because it's April, cold weather, all that stuff, against the league, somehow this division has some of the best pitching. So I kind of wanted to take a deep dive into that specifically. We'll go into it in a second, but I don't know if you guys want to talk about your individual pitching staff, and then I really wanted to look at Kansas City because I think they're really interesting.
What's happening is we're playing the other Central teams, and everyone's pissed about how we're hitting, so it makes our pitching look really good.
Part of that is true, but the Kansas City's playing the Yankees right now. Detroit's already played the Dodgers. Cleveland's played San Diego. There has been actual competition. So yes, have they been playing the White Sox and the Twins and all the other? Because there's another slide that shows just how good the hitting has been in this division, and it's the opposite of the screen that I am showing right now. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on your guys' pitching.
I will say for the Tigers, I'm very optimistic about this rotation. So MLB Network did a segment last week where they comped all the starting rotation to our starting rotation in 2013, which if that comes to life and our starting rotation is anything like it was in 2013, that would be amazing. I mean, I think it's a bit of a stretch what they did there, but still. And we played the Yankees, and they did not hit a home run until the 6th inning of the 3rd game. I know it was freezing and snowing and all that, but Tigers were hitting home runs. The Yankees did not hit a home run until most way through the series. I think that was we shut them out as well. Like we outscored them by a lot. I think that was kind of a really good test for our pitching because going into that series, I was like kind of really nervous. Like, oh, are we going to get swept because our offense isn't going to be able to keep up with the Yankees? But like, no, I mean, pitching wise, we did very well against them. Like Flaherty and Skubal combined were very good against the Yankees and Mize too. Like all three of them were amazing against the Yankees lineup. Like, yeah, it's cold, but like Tigers could hit, Yankees weren't. So I think that series on its own was very good, kind of a test for this rotation, which I was a little, and the bullpen too. But in general, very happy with how it's looked so far.
I can say from the Guardians' perspective that very similar to last year, where our bullpen has been carrying really the entirety of the pitching staff. Last I checked, and this may have changed slightly since then, especially with kind of what's going on tonight, it'll definitely change. Tristan McKenzie's kind of blown up in the last inning or so, but I believe we're about third or fourth in relief in bullpen ERA, and while starters ERA is like 27th, 26th. So something that I tend to get frustrated with how we're talking about managerial decisions. Stephen Vogt usually has a pretty quick trigger on his starting rotation, and ultimately that seems to be the right move most of the time, just because the strength of the pitching staff is the bullpen. It's come from a few different places this year so far, where guys like Emmanuel Clase, Cade Smith haven't been as good as they were last year, but they've gotten contributions other places and have really kept the train on the tracks. So really that's how they've been able to compete pitching wise.
Yeah. Oren, we're talking about two White Sox pitchers later, but I understand that they're 10th in the American League, which obviously is in the bottom third, but it's not. They're at a 4.10 ERA, which is not all that bad. It's not great, but what have you thought of the pitching?
Yeah, I mean it hasn't been terrible. There's been a few guys, like you said, we'll talk about later. Martin Perez and Shane Smith have been pretty good. The other young guys have had a few good games here and there, so it's been fine to watch. The offense is much more of a problem. But yeah, especially with the other teams, the Tigers with Skubal and Olsen, the Royals look really good. It's just I think there is just a lot of pitching talent in the division right now.
Right. So I'll talk about the Twins because, like I said, I do want to go into a bit of a deep dive with Kansas City and look at them a little bit more in depth. But the Twins have had a little bit more blow-ups than you'd like to see from starting rotation, but they really seem to figuring it out. Joe Ryan, his last two starts have looked really good, and he's essentially a two-pitch pitcher, fastball, splitter. He has a unique fastball in that it has a lot of carry to it, so it doesn't fall as fast as other fastballs. And then he has a splitter that when he's on looks really good. We can't any complaints about him. The only issue in the rotation, other than Simeon Woods Richardson blowing kisses at people, is Chris Paddock. But I've gone on enough about him. So Sam, we did want to do a little bit of a bit of a deeper dive for Kansas City, as I've already said. Number one pitching staff according for ERA in the league 3 weeks into the season. It's early, but take a second to brag about it.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's definitely going to be, as I said, coming into the year, it's going to be the biggest strength of this Royals team, and you knew coming into the season that the Royals were going to have a good starting pitching, a good starting rotation, and you knew that they had made some moves to fix the bullpen. And I think starting out the year, it's been interesting to see Cole Reagan's obviously dominating. Seth Lugo, not as good as he was last year, but again, off to a good start. Michael Wacha, same thing, off to a good start. But guys like Chris Bubich, when he is pitching as well as he has, and tonight he had a little bit of a rocky start against the Yankees, but still pitched 5 1/3 and gave up 3 to the Yankees, you'll take that from your fourth starter, and you'll take what Michael Lorenzen has given you from your fifth starter. And, all these guys are off to good starts. Some of them, are uh, not as great as they were maybe last year. But if you have those guys at the bottom of the rotation giving you good production, you're going to have a good staff. And so I think top to bottom, I mean, it's very impressive, and it's something that is kind of, um, Royals have had great bullpens in the past, specifically when they won the World Series years in 14 and 15. But it's been unusual for me to see the Royals have just a dominant starting pitching staff, because that's not something that's ever really been the case during my years as a Royals fan. And even when they were going to the World Series in 14 and 15, their starting pitchers were good. You had guys who, were definitely solid players, but you did not have guys who were to this level of talent and giving you this much production. Um, and so, yes, it is a small sample size, and you are going to see some guys go through ups and downs as the season goes on. But I'm very pleased with what I've seen so far from the Royals, and even with, for the sake of taking the good with the bad, the Royals are down to the Yankees in the ninth inning, and they're going to get swept most likely by the Yankees. But in 3 games against the Yankees, they gave up 12 runs.
Yep.
And this is a team that in the Yankees that scored 30 some odd runs in 3 games to start
A
the
lot of
year
home runs.
against the Brewers. So that's, I'll take that 7 days a week. Now, of course, the problem comes when you score 6 runs in 3 games. So I am feeling very good about what I've seen from the Royals starting pitchers. And from the bullpen, I think, again, same thing. You knew coming into the year that they had fixed the bullpen. And Sam Long got off to a horrible start, and they, either has been injured or, got put on the injured list for other reasons. But I think, looking at them, and they've been consistent too, because the most runs they've given up in a game is 8, and that was to the Orioles a couple weeks ago. So when that's you have a couple 7s, a couple 8s that you've given up, and that's a bad night. Some teams are giving up 7, 8 runs a night. So it's definitely the coming into the year, you knew it was going to be the biggest strength of the team, and it's really been impressive what they've been able to do to start the season.
I'm going to bring up there's baseball savant pages here in a bit, but I just wanted to call out a couple numbers. So you say Cole Reagans has been dominant. He leads baseball in strikeouts with 34.
Mm-hmm.
His strikeouts per 9 is 12.9. That's what you want to see from a dominant late inning reliever. Like, for a starting pitcher to do that is phenomenal. I don't know who he's been facing. Has he been facing, he's been facing some Central teams, but what is his what competition has he been facing? Is that legit, or do you think that's going to keep up?
I think it's legit. I think the biggest thing is that he has had 3 straight games of having 10 plus strikeouts. So
Yikes.
he has been, which is nuts. I think he's the second player in Royals history to do that. But he's had 2 starts against Cleveland, a start against the Brewers, a start against and a start against the Twins. So,
Then the
and in the first game against Cleveland, he had 3 strikeouts. So he has, I think, over the last 3 starts, been very consistent doing that. And Cleveland's not some Cleveland's not
High contact team.
not a team of a bunch of guys who can't hit, and he's had 2 starts against them. So I think it's going to be very. Oh my God, MJ Melendez sucks. I think yeah. Looking at how prolific he has been with strikeouts to start the year, he's a legit Cy Young candidate. There's no two ways about that.
And then like
I
Chris
thought for a
Bubich.
moment there that MJ Melendez was going to have a one shining moment to save the series against the Yankees, but he did not. Anyway,
While you're wallowing in your MJ Melendez, the other pitcher, like Chris Bubich, I know I just butchered that wrong. .96 ERA, has an ERA plus of 4.34. That's not sustainable, obviously. But even his FIP is 2.59, which and it like is that going to be sustainable an entire season? Probably not. But that's still going to, if that holds true, that's Cy Young candidate. So I did want to just kind of pull out their Baseball Savant pages as like a nice visual. I was looking at this a little bit earlier because I spent 10 minutes. So if I look up something, I have to show it. So I did notice. So Michael Wacha, who is in the top left, he's actually increased his fastball usage and has lowered his sinker usage. It's not much, but it's clearly, I don't know if he was having issues with the sinker last year, but that has been a change that he's done so far this year. Reagan's has increased his fastball usage to 51%. It was at like 43% before. And I think he ended up like ditching a splitter or something like that. The one like question mark that I'd be kind of concerned about, and everyone kind of saw, there's only one source of blue on this page, and it's Seth Lugo. I guess my concerns would be his hard hit percentage is up like 8% to like 45%, which is balls who are hit past 95 exit velocity. His K percentage is down, and his walk percentage is up. So those are probably the worst combination you can have with that. So I don't know, Sam, have you noticed how shaky Lugo has been? Or
yeah, he's not had his best stuff to start the year. I think there's no denying that he has not been the portrait of greatness that he was last year. And I mean, 2024 was a great season for Lugo. I mean, there's no two ways about it. And he really throughout the year just was consistently really good. Started the year great, ended the year great. Um, and so he's not had that level of stuff to begin the year, but I think he's done a really good job of getting through it, and he's done a really good job of, even though he's not lighting the world on fire, he's done a good job of keeping the team in the game and making the most of whatever situation that he's in. And it's not like he's gotten blown up either. At any point, he has, the most runs he's given up in a start was 4, and that was against the Yankees 2 nights ago. So I think he maybe will not, and I think everyone probably knew that Seth Lugo was not going to repeat what he did in 2024. But he's done a good job of, despite not being at his best, sort of getting through it and being giving the team a chance to win. So I think he'll probably, we'll see a lot of his numbers improve as the year goes on. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of year he ends up having, especially compared to what he did last season.
and really the only other number I wanted, just maybe as a small concern, and you're talking about when you have someone like Bubik and Reagan's and like Marco Lorenzen, I'm assuming is the 5th starter. That's still really good. Like a 113 OPS plus is obviously 13% better than the league average for an or for an ERA. Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo, their strikeout to walk rate not great, which would cause me concern considering their age. They both been doing this.
4.4.
Yeah, they've
Walks per
both been
nine.
doing this a minute, but I don't know. They have enough veteranness to figure it out, but I do kind of wonder if the talent is. I don't want to say they're obviously closer to the end of the line than they are to the start of it. But Sam, do you
Mhm.
know what's the starting pitching looking like on the farm system if the worst case scenario looks like? I'm kind of putting you on the
I
spot.
know that the Royals have a couple guys. Well, I also will mention Kyle Wright, who I talked about a little bit ago. He's someone who's had success in the big leagues, who's coming off injury. He is, I think, going to probably supplant Lorenzen in the starting rotation if slash when he comes back this year. But Lorenzen has been a back and forth his entire career between the bullpen and the starting rotation. Um, Farm system wise, I think the Royals have, they had a pretty healthy competition in spring training for the rotation. Um, I think guys like Noah Cameron, who's from St. Joe, guys like Alec Marsh, who had some success with the Royals last year. They've got some pretty decent guys who are down in the farm system, and I think they have pretty decent depth at the as far as pitching within the organization. So I think we will see some of those guys who I just mentioned at some point this year, but it will be there's not as many spots as there are not as many open slots on the Royals pitching staff, so we'll see. And one more thing I wanted to mention, going back to the Royals starting or the Royals pitchers just in general, I believe Daniel Lynch, the fourth, now has a like a 28 inning scoreless streak going back to last year. Uh, so he has been able to, and I believe he's getting close to the Royals record for longest scoreless streak. But he's had 28 consecutive scoreless innings going back to last year.
Just out of curiosity, who was on the Royals staff in 2015? Their starting pitching.
So in 2015, when they won the World Series, they traded for Johnny Cueto halfway through the year.
Hmm.
James
So
Shields
he
too, right?
was, yeah, and so he pitched well in the playoffs. He was shaky for that half season for the Royals, but he was okay, and he did what he was brought in to do, which was obviously pitch well in the playoffs. They had outside of Johnny Cueto, they had Edinson Volquez, Giordano Ventura, Chris Young, and Danny Duffy were their starting pitchers. And so, decent guys, solid enough MLB starters, that group right there. But when you win the World Series and your best pitchers are Chris Young and Edinson Volquez, it probably means that you had a decent bullpen.
Just
It
decent.
probably
Yeah.
also it probably also means that the Mets handed you that World Series on a silver platter and tried as hard as they could to get that World Series trophy away from them.
Still the trophy though. You
But
still got
hey,
the
you know
ring.
what? You get it how it comes to you.
All right. Now that which is also 10 years ago, Sam, how does that make you feel? Like,
You know what? I was a senior in high school when the Royals won the World Series, and so now I'm realizing that it's been 10 years since I was in high school too. So that's an interesting moment for me. But you know, a lot of teams have gone a lot longer than 10 years without winning the World Series. So
yeah, the
I
rest
can,
of us.
yeah, I can be glad that my team has won the World Series more recently than a lot of
Yeah, what about in your lifetime? Imagine.
well, yeah, yeah.
Dan, what
Well,
was it
hey,
like
I
watching the last Cleveland World? Do you?
Couldn't tell you. Lee just said in your lifetime, in my dad's lifetime. So Someday.
Well, one day. Okay, so enough of memory lane. So we should probably talk about the inverse. And there's only one team who is putting up a fight against pitching because the American League hitting. Detroit is top 5 in the American League with a whopping 711 OPS. Obviously, we just talked about at length that April is not great for offense. But even comparatively, Detroit is the only team in the division that is in the top third. Cleveland has come alive, so I think I didn't check this a couple days ago, but I'm gonna guess they were quite lower. And then really just bringing down the bottom, the White Sox, Royals, and Twins, really bringing down the division as far as hitting. So I did want to take maybe not as big of a dive into the offense, but I did definitely want to talk about the Tigers and maybe some of their surprises on the offense side of it. So Lee, what have you been seeing? What have the Tigers been doing well that the rest of us can't?
I don't know. This is going into this. I said this a lot.
Good analysis, Lee. All right, over to Sam.
No, it's just everyone is. Sorry.
You're doing right. I have no idea. Why are you asking me?
No, but honestly, we were not expecting the offense to be a strong part of this team. And for last week, for like a brief couple of days, the Tigers were top 5 in baseball in like majority of offensive statistical categories. And they're not big sluggers. They're just stringing together hits. Everyone on the team is contributing in a way, and they're able to get 4 or 5 hits in an inning. This today, I'm not sure how it changed before, but they showed it on the broadcast. They were second in the league in first inning runs, first in the league in pitches seen in the first inning, and first in the league in hits in the first inning. So they're jumping on starting pitchers early, and they're getting their pitch counts up early. And so they're getting into bullpens sooner, which is very nice to see. Apart from that, the team as a whole is overperforming in offense. We're already kind of starting to see them go down a little bit. The Brewers series, not exactly great. They scored 10 runs in that series. 9 of them came in the first game. It was a fun game, but anyway. But a lot of the we're seeing. Let's see, Javi Baez is hitting for average, right? I think Gleyber Torres fixed him because there was an article that came out, and Torres basically just told Baez, when you're starting off in an at-bat, pitchers are just going to throw to you outside. Just don't swing at those. And so his chase rate and whiff rate is down. He's still striking out a lot, but he's not chasing out of the box as much, as he's getting good hits. Dylan Dingler he's been great so far in terms of offensive power. Kerry Carpenter is continuing to hit home runs. The real story, though, is with Spencer Torkelson, because he has been, not even going to lie, he's one of the best hitters in baseball right now. He's at 6 home runs currently. Last year, he hit his 6th home run of the season in August. We are 18 games in the season, and he is at 6 home runs. That is amazing. And I really think I was kind of skeptical the first week and a half. Is this a hot streak? But no, I think this is here to stay, because he has made mechanical changes. He's changed his batting stance, so he's more natural. He's more narrowed in. But if we got up the Baseball Savant page comparing 2025 to 24. His exit velocity is way up. He's hitting the barrel a lot more. He's getting hard hits. His bat speed is pretty much the same, but he's hitting the ball in a better spot on the bat. He's shortened his swing. His barrel percentage is a 16.7 compared to 6.7 last year. Hard hit percent, 52% compared to 39 last year. I mean, and he says also he changed his approach. And watching that, I can see, because last season there's a lot of a middle fastball, and he just watched it. But he's actually hitting good pitches, and he's laying off bad pitches. So it's just, it's really good to see, honestly. Like, he's been a very good hitter. And I really hope that it stays throughout the season. And it's not just like, because in 23, he had a month where he hit like 12 home runs or something. And then, 24 was just not really a great year for him. So I really hope this is a long term thing. And I think it is, because he changed his swing, he changed his batting stance. And going into the spring, we weren't really sure if he was actually changing anything, because there's a statement that came out where he's like, "Oh, I don't know if I'll even look at video." And we're all like, "Dude, please just do something." But obviously he changed, he did change something. I don't know what he did or what led to those changes, but he changed his batting stance, he shortened his swing, and he changed his approach, and it's working out fantastically. And he's having so much fun playing, which is so great to see. Like, he pimped the hell out of that one home run. He's hitting well, and he knows it, and he feels confident, which is really important. So that was a long rant on why it's very fun watching Spencer Torkelson actually hit the ball well. But yeah, fun stat that came out: Torkelson and Carpenter are the first Tigers duo since 2009 to each hit 5 home runs in the first 16 games of a season. That's according to Baseball Reference stat head. But the whole team is hitting well collectively. I do think that is going to come down a bit, because the series against the Brewers wasn't great. They got 1 hit the second game. They scored 1 run the last game. But collectively as a whole, the team is doing very well. Like, I guess it's a very vibes heavy team, which is why sometimes you'll get games where nobody knows how to hit, because all that energy kind of feeds off each other. But it also means if a few guys start hitting, everyone else starts hitting. But most of our hitters have positive WAR, which is really new. Like, I don't know. It's just been really working out great. And even Colt, he hasn't been hitting well, but he's been walking a ton still. Dylan, yeah, I talked about Dylan Dinkler a bit, and because he's going to get more reps with Jake Rogers out, and he's been a very good hitter. He was a big slugger in the minor leagues, so it's very good to see him do well. And Trey Sweeney too, because we've had Baez mostly play at third, and Trey Sweeney has been he's gone down a little bit, but for a while he was an average hitter. But if we can have both Sweeney and Baez on the field, and they're playing well and they're good defensively, that is huge, because we don't really have a third baseman.
So. Just looking at it too. As much as I love the name Dylan Dingler, it's not that I don't necessarily believe in him, but a 144 OPS plus so far. I'm going to assume it's not his first touch of the majors, but was he much of a prospect coming up or no?
Not so much recently. He was more in like 22, a big prospect, because he went on an absolute tear in AA, but then he slowed down when he hit AAA. He came up at the end of last season for like a month and a half or so. So I wasn't really sure what his deal was going to end up being, but a couple of years ago, he looked very exciting. He just kind of slowed down in the upper leagues, but he was a kind of a big slugging guy. So if he can be that guy on the major league level, that'd be very, very good.
And then just as far as guys, so like Dingler to me would still be a question mark, but as far as like established guys, I would say Torkelson, I'm starting to be a bigger believer in. Carpenter he's absolutely killed the Twins, but I believe in him. Riley Green, looks like he's leading the league in strikeouts, which isn't a great look, but I don't feel like he's that much.
He's going
like
through one hell of a slump. He tends to kind of go up and down a little bit, so it's not really like he's like 1 for 32 in the last bit with like 20 strikeouts or something. So, he's slumping, but he tends to do that. It's just not like super concerning.
But if you're looking at Carpenter, Torkelson, who is it? Green, Torres, I'll believe, are 4 legitimate offensive threats. You get back Meadows, you're now 5 deep. Jake Rogers, when he went on the IL, had a 106 OPS plus, and for a catcher, he only needs to have like a 90 OPS plus for them to be a better than average catcher batting wise, if that makes any sense. Like, there's a lot of, now you're talking 6 deep,
And
of
Fearling when
That's
he comes back
offense.
too. He's an average to above average hitter.
So, I mean, this Detroit offense, Cleveland has looked really good in the last week, but I feel like I would pick Detroit's offense over Cleveland's offense, but maybe that flips in a month, but we'll see.
I am so excited for when Fearling and Meadows come back because when they were, because yeah, like I said, the offense has cooled down a little bit right now, but like when they were really hot, like during the Twins and Yankees series, it was like, oh man, with Green, Torque, and Carpenter hitting the way that they are, imagine this lineup when Fearling and Meadows comes back because oh boy, it's going to be dangerous. There's also a great tweet that came out of if this team remembers that they can hit before the 6th inning, it's going to be really scary because they tend to late inning comebacks are kind of their thing. But I mean, they're it's really good to see them hit well in the first inning because a lot of the times it was late inning comebacks where they're like it reaches the 8th inning, they're down by 2 and they're like, oh yeah, let's put a few hits together. Like the last game in the Yankees series, they were down 4-0 entering the bottom of the 9th, and then they scored 3 runs. So we almost got that last one. But so late inning comebacks are a very thing. It's good when they're hitting well, they're hitting throughout the entire game. And even when they're down, they can still come back in those late innings. Like last season, they led the league in late inning comebacks. They had the best record when they were losing in the 8th inning or later. And that energy has carried over into this season, which is very encouraging because there's a major concern, which is a very valid concern of the success that they had at the end of last season was very momentum heavy, and a lot of it was a little bit of luck. How much of that is going to carry over? And it looks like a lot of that has, in fact, carried over. So
No.
that was a big ramble from me about why this offense is actually really exciting. But
Take it while you can.
yeah.
The rest of us can't hit, so. All right, so next up, we're now 3 weeks in, which obviously is still incredibly early to talk about surprises, but there's been a couple of them throughout the division that I thought we should probably highlight. So first, I kind of wanted to talk about over in Cleveland, Emmanuel Clase might be human. Dan, can you confirm?
It's sure looking that way. So I will say this. I had mentioned when I was speaking earlier about how Guardians bullpen, it's still been very much excellent this year, but it hasn't necessarily came from the same places as last year entirely. And I had mentioned Clase immediately as maybe not quite as good as he'd been last year. And if you look at his direct numbers, things like his ERA, you would think that's an incredible understatement. He's been really foul. But, to that point, coming into tonight, he had been incredibly rickety, had a 6.75 ERA. Whip was 2. 2 saves on the year, already having more runs allowed this season than he had last, when he only allowed 5 earned runs over the course of the entirety of the calendar year last year. But all that said, I think there's a lot here to suggest that he's gotten pretty unlucky. Immediately, comparing his regular ERA of 6.75 to his expected ERA of 3.54, nearly half. His WOBA, his 4.11 versus his ex-WOBA, quality of contact against, is 3.08, a full 100 points lower in terms of what you would expect to occur as outcomes on balls that were hit off of him. And, that comes down to also being coupled with his worst strikeout rate of his career. Now, that's not luck. 19.5% strikeout rate has never been lower than that. And in doing a little bit of trying to figure out kind of what's been going on with Clase, the biggest thing that came up is his slider. He was 2-pitch pitcher, cutter, well known, highly renowned, 100-mile-an-hour cutter, and then a slider that usually is somewhere between 89 and 91. 2 pitches break the same direction, change of speed though. His slider is getting drilled. The regular WOBA on his slider is 639. But expected is 330. Again, about half of it. So lots of bad outcomes going on there, and not entirely to his fault. Now that 330 expected is still pretty high for where he's been historically. So it's not all luck. He is getting hit, more than he was last year. But last year was Herculean.
Right.
It's going to be very hard to kind of compare off of, even if he had kind of a regular season of his own. So far, that hasn't been the case.
Am I
Is he,
am I
Is
am
he
I
throwing
insane?
the slider for? Sorry, is he throwing the slider for strikes more than he has been in other years?
So just in general, he's been in the zone quite a bit this year, just in general, cutter or slider. And that is kind of one of his pitfalls is he's always been a guy that's pounded the strike zone, but it seems like he's been middle of the plate quite a bit more often this year. Also, one thing I noticed on that slider is I don't know how much to make of this, but it's 2 ticks slower. He's averaging about 91 last year, 89 so far this year. Again, I'm thinking that might be a cold thing. I was thinking also maybe it wasn't breaking as much. That's not the case. I was thinking maybe grip was an issue there, but it's breaking just as well as it has in the past. I will say his slider was his better put away pitch last year. 22% put away percentage last year, only 9% this year. His slider was actually more effective in striking guys out last year than his cutter was. And it's gone the other way. There's one other thing that's going on here, though. And Eric, if you could pull the visual up one more time. But against right-handers in particular, he has been worse this year, significantly worse against right-handed hitters. And one thing that really stuck out to me is you see the 2 graphs there. One above is righties last year versus on the bottom is righties this year. He's not pitching righties up and in. And so my current hypothesis is if he's not busting righties up and in with his cutter, guys are comfortable at the plate. They're leaning out over the plate. That slider is a little bit easier to hit now because they aren't having to worry about that inside hard stuff. So I think this could be a pitch mix issue as well as just varying a little bit more in terms of how much he's pounding the zone, throwing some more purposeful balls off the plate when he gets ahead.
I did actually want I'm glad you said Pix Mitch, because it does look like he's actually throwing his slider slightly more. I mean, it's not. He's a cutter pitcher, but he has increased 10% using that slider.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that's intentional, but I wonder why.
Yeah, particularly when he's not getting very good results off of it. You know, I'm grasping at straws here, but I've made acknowledgement on a couple of episodes about this now. He did hit Jonathan India in the head earlier this year. Could be a confidence thing about busting guys inside, particularly right-handed hitters like Jonathan India. So maybe he's gone to that slider more. He doesn't feel like he can command the cutter as much.
Well, not for nothing. If you look at where he's throwing that slider, that's not where you want it.
Exactly.
Yeah, a slider in the middle of the zone is not a good
So
slider.
Oren, to your question, yes, he is throwing it in the middle of the zone.
Okay, interesting. That's good analysis.
Does he throw his cutter at the bottom corner? I feel like the cutter goes like top corner, correct? Top outside or no?
He'll go up, down, in, out,
Huh.
pretty much anywhere with that. It's with how often he throws it, it's a all locations type pitch. Apparently, except for inside against righties right now.
Okay. Another surprise for Cleveland is actually on the offensive side. So Gabriel Arias might be turning a corner.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier today and in a previous episode, Gabriel Arias is former top prospect who has had a couple opportunities, a couple bites at the apple in the majors. 2023, he came up and he was competing for the shortstop job amongst Brian Rocchio, Tyler Freeman, and didn't get an opportunity to really play every day because he was in competition with those guys. Last year, he's a really athletic guy, great arm, fast, good range, good glove. They were using him as a utility player. Second, third, right field, even a little bit of center field. And again, he was in and out of the lineup, in and out of different positions. This year, they've afforded him the opportunity to he's the second baseman most days. He's doing a little bit of filling in here and there, other places, but most days he's been the everyday second baseman, and he has responded. He's responded offensively. Coming into tonight, he was slashing 286, 345, 490 with 3 home runs. He added a home run tonight. The one run the Guardians scored against Baltimore tonight was a Jeremy Claire's home run. He has gotten a little lucky. It's going to do WOBA versus ex-WOBA again. 365 WOBA versus 330 ex-WOBA. I checked. League average ex-WOBA, though, is 315. Quality of contact has been above average so far this year. Now, his pitfall as a hitter throughout his young career so far has been swings and misses a lot. He hits the ball hard, but he swings and misses a lot. His K rate is still 30%. It was 33% last year. So he's swinging and missing. However, he only walked in like 3% of his at-bats last year, or 3% of his plate appearances. He's doubled that. It's about 7%. So he's seeing the ball a little bit better. He's being a little bit more selective. Combine that with some of that great bat speed, and he's hitting the ball a heck of a lot better. A couple other things. He's seen fewer pitches in the zone this year, which to me feels like scouting report. Guys have a book on him now, and they know he's a free swinger and a guy who'll swing and miss a lot, and he's adjusted. He's taking more pitches. He's taking more walks, as I mentioned a moment ago. And as long as he stays disciplined, especially when that inevitable next adjustment from the pitching side comes, which I think if I were trying to get him out, I'd throw him sliders outside and get him to chase. He's going to have to stick to that. If he can stick to that, this guy could be an everyday second baseman in a above average one for a really long time. Go ahead. Sorry.
I know, not to cut you off too, but just one number I wanted to point out too. His hard hit percentage between last year and this year, he was at 36.6, and now he's at 47.1, which is, I mean, it's an 8% jump, but that's a really encouraging sign considering his walk rate is up, his strikeout rate is down, and he's hitting the ball harder. Like, that's how you succeed.
Absolutely. And one thing is, since he's come up, his approach, he is very, very good opposite field power. When he's seeing the ball well and he's hitting the ball well, he's wearing out the right center field gap. I think all of his home runs this year have been right center. He actually, this is a bit of a pull from time from the past, but he reminds me of Johnny Peralta, if anybody else remembers that guy. Tall, right-handed hitter. He's a much better athlete than Peralta was, but when he's going well, he's wearing out the right center field gap, hitting doubles, hitting home runs over the fence there. And when he's not, he's chasing down and away. And that was Peralta to a T. If his outcome was a more athletic second base Johnny Peralta, that's beautiful, I think. 20 home runs a year, decent average. I think that's kind of what he could be, except a better athlete in the field. And he's gotten the chance to play every day, and so far it's been working out. And nobody else is really fighting for that second base spot, so hopefully it keeps going.
Yeah,
I think you meant to say Jahani.
Jahani, yes.
Because that's how his name was spelled. Jahani Peralta.
No,
Yeah.
according
AL
to him,
Central
everyone
legend.
else is just spelling it wrong. JH is the way you're supposed to spell it, according to him.
Yeah. Former Tiger, too, as well as Indian.
Yeah.
We're going to jump back just to Detroit for just a minute because other than Spencer Torkelson, Zach McKinstry has been kind of making a name. So, Lee, what have you thought of McKinstry making a turnaround?
Yeah. So it's really exciting. So Zach McKinstry, he's listed as a shortstop there. I'm not sure why. He's a super utility guy. He can play pretty much every position except for center and catcher, pretty much. He'll mostly do third base, second base, and right field. But since this is going back to August of last year, he has been way better at the plate. I know that there's a lot of blue on his stats there, but he's just getting a lot better results. And so there's a great article in The Athletic that I'm referencing here. Entering Saturday, he was hitting .298 with a 131 WRC plus since August of last season. So this isn't just like a 16-game stretch he's having. This is going back 2 months, right? I think he's got a better approach. Kind of the whole team has, really, but just grinding out at bats and not swinging at the first pitch they see. But he's got his launch angle sweet spot is way up, which I don't know what that tells you. But I mean, he's getting a lot of walks. He's getting good timely hits, and he's just been a really big contribution for. And he was a guy that, like, going into the season, a lot of people were like, "Is he even going to be on the roster?" Because I mean, let's be honest. He's a below average hitter, and he's like and he's going into his 30th year. There's a few question marks, especially when we're going to be a team that's competing. But no, I think he's really shown, going back to last year, also that he's a good hitter, and AJ Hinch really loves players that can play a lot of different positions, and he's the type of guy who can play a lot of different positions and play them well. Like, he's not going to win any Gold Gloves, but when you have a guy that can play short, second, first, and right field or left field, and he can hit for above average, like, as a good player that you want to have in your team. And he's just also a really, like, clubhouse guy that he's confident, and he's knows what he's capable of, and he's been on a really good stretch lately. So it's fun to watch.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't have too much. I mean, I know just super utility. His value isn't necessarily going to be at the plate. So if he can just be a league average hitter, there's so much value in that. If he can just be passable in 5 other positions, so he doesn't need to be a 30 home run guy. He can just be solid everywhere, and there's so much value to that.
Yeah, he can't really hit lefties as much, but he hits righties pretty well. And yeah, I mean, if he could hit for average or above average while playing very different spots, I mean, he's going to be on a roster. So.
Next up, there is someone in Kansas City, not named Bobby or Salvi, that can hit. Miguel Perez. I'm very sorry. Miguel Garcia might be breaking out here.
Yeah, so Michael Garcia is a guy who I think a lot of people had pinned as a breakout candidate last season. And I think for the most part, to start the season, it really looked like he was going to break out. Last year, he hit 3 home runs in the first week. And we know that he's a threat on the bases. As you can see, he had 37 steals and 2 caught stealings last year. But for him, really after that first week, it was pretty much a tailspin for the rest of the year. And while he did put up decent numbers as far as his WAR is concerned last year, I think that's a little bit deceptive. And I think when you look at some of his other offensive stats, it's it was pretty poor for a guy who was pegged as someone who might break out. However, this season he's off to another hot start, but he has maintained that through 18 games as opposed to 7 or 8 games of last year. So I think he was, and I said this coming into the season, he was someone who I had really pegged as someone who needed to start playing some ball. And for him to come up to the bigs and, be pegged as someone who could be a breakout player, I think he had a lot of pressure on himself last year and had a lot of pressure after his hot start last year. But it seems like he's been able to put some things together and be a little bit better player. I mean, looking at his Savant page, I mean, you see a lot of red there, and you see a lot of stats that make you believe that he can sustain this throughout the whole season. And even something like his base running value being in the 3rd percentile, he's had as many caught stealings this year as he did last year, because he had a caught stealing tonight. So he's going to have a couple of those. But I think for him, it's going to be a question of, we've seen that he can get hot for a handful of games. Now, can he sustain that? And I think the other thing that's maybe helping him is that he, during the off season, worked a lot on the outfield, playing in the outfield, playing other positions on the infield. He's played third, he's played second, He's played center field this season. So his value as a player, if he can continue to stay hot and play all those different positions, will be the type of player that I think a lot of people expected him to be last season.
I do just want, like, I know we were just talking about it with Arias, but his hard hit percentage has gone, he improved like 15% from last year. So I know his walk percentage went down and his K rate went up a little bit. But if you're hitting the ball hard, you can take a few more strikeouts. That's fine.
Mhm.
If you're hitting the ball 57% of the time above 95 miles an hour, that'll do it. That'll work.
Yeah. So, but he again, he's improved and he's been able to sustain that level of success for a little bit longer. And I think sometimes, especially like I said, he hit 3 home runs in the first week last year. I think sometimes hitting home runs for a guy like him can be a negative mentally because you start trying to do that, and that can really negatively affect your swing. And I think he'll be a guy who hits 15 home runs or so if he can sustain his level of success. But I'm optimistic that he will be able to put it together and have a full season this year. So, and it's also I didn't know until very recently that he is cousins with Alcides Escobar and Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
what do you know?
Now we know. All right. I don't have a transition for relatives other than they're Acuna's from a different country, and Ty France's last name is from another country. So I want to talk about Ty France. How's that for a segue? Do I earn it?
Loved it.
You
Good
could have
job.
gone with the twins joke because twins are related to each other. There, you could have gone with that.
You know, the actual joke is like Eddie Julien is actually French Canadian, and you have Ty France, so you have the French connection. That should have been the way I went. It's been made multiple times in Twins Reddit, but
You need Jacques Jones back now.
if only. Yes. Jack Jones, who I believe is from the South, so I don't know where Jacques quite came from, but it's fine. So I just wanted to talk about. There's not a lot of bright spots. The Twins' offense is starting to heat up. I think maybe, probably not. They're 7-12. They're garbage anyway, so it's going to be a month before they can climb out of this hole. So in the meantime, I want to talk about their first baseman, who they signed on a minor league deal, who's going to make $1 million if he stays in the league all year. So Ty France. I think I talked about this in the season preview. I wasn't a huge fan of this signing. As low as I've been on Jose Miranda, I would have preferred them to have just given the job to Jose Miranda. But Ty France is, well, he was just named the American League Player of the Month, Player of the Week. So you can't argue with any of the results. Is it sustainable? We'll see, but it has been nice to see someone that has some type of offense going through. You'll kind of note I did put in a spray chart. You're going to notice all of his power is made to the pull side. He does have a couple singles that went right up the middle, and he does hit to the opposite side for singles too, which is nice to see. He is a spray hitter. He is a see ball, hit ball. Kind of like Turkelson, he thought that he was getting too much information in the batter's box of what pitch he was going to see. Like there was just too much being thrown at him, so he was taking a step back from that. And that's what he really blamed why he was so bad last year and why he was available for a minor league deal. What I will say for him, and I'm not going to tell you that I'm a huge believer in Ty France yet, but if you look at his numbers from 2022, which was his lone All-Star season, his slash line was 274, 338, and 436 for a 774 OPS. That's kind of similar to what he's hitting, 270, 333, 413. It was a 125 OPS plus then. It's a 113 OPS plus now. That does work. So he does have some type of track of what he's doing now. Where I'm a little concerned is his K percentage. This is great. Don't get me wrong. He's striking out less than 10% of the time. I don't know what should be encouraging, but in no point of his career has he ever been below 15%, let alone 8%. So if he's going to swing at everything, that's fine. I don't want to say like he needs to, he doesn't need to strike out a whole lot, but eventually pitchers are going to figure that out, that he's not going to swing. He doesn't hit for a lot of power. He does have 2 home runs, but he's only a 15 to 20 home run guy. We'll see if it fits. If he is even, I mean, you could argue he was a minor league signing. He just won Player of the Week. This is already a successful signing, like regardless of what he does here on out. But I am a little concerned about what he's doing there. But it's worked out so far. I can't hate what Ty France is doing.
I'm glad he was able to really shine against the Tigers. That was,
Thank you for that.
Both him and Buxton were able to really break out a little bit. That was very fun.
I don't need a reason to drool over Byron Buxton. He is my baseball crush. But he's so fun to watch, and he's healthy, and god damn it, am I so happy for him.
He is so fast. It's insane.
He turned, I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but like he turned a hard hit single into a double against the Tigers that scored a run. He had a contact play. Like he's just making plays that only elite skill, like elite speed players make, and like it's fun to watch, and I'm so happy it's happening. Anyway, that's not a surprise. Byron Buxton, when healthy, is actually really fun to watch. This is what he should be doing. But as far as the surprise in the other way, Griffin Jax, kind of like Clase, he's had some bad luck, but boy, is he really getting hit hard. He's only had a couple appearances, but I really wanted to point out his hard hit percentage is at 57%. Last year was at 38%.
Ooh.
He's given up big home runs at like crucial spots, like back-breaking home runs. Jordan Alvarez, he gave up a lead. I believe the Twins only have 1 save, and I think they collected it yesterday. They might have 2, because I think they might have gotten 1 today. They have 3 blown saves. So up until yesterday, the Twins had no saves and 3 blown saves. 2 of them are from Jax. 2 years ago, when he first kind of turned into like a decent reliever, he got BABIP'd, batting average of ball his hit in play, to death. Like he had like a 350, where so actually I can probably isn't even on here. Maybe it's not. But 2 years ago, he just had really bad luck with little squibbers finding holes. But that's not the case this year. He's had bombs given up. You can look at his home runs per 9. 2.7 for a late inning reliever is a disaster. It's shown. For his expected, his WOBA, 327, not great as well. It just kind of depends on what he's going to do. His FIP, 437, that is not an elite closer. It was 194 last year. That's not going to work. So we're going to see what happens with him. But if you look at his sliders on Savant, it doesn't look bad. But you can't give up homers as a late inning reliever, period. But
yeah, and especially when you think about something like what we discussed earlier, the play the other night where he just completely threw the ball away on a little tapper back to the mound. You know, when you're struggling to make pitches, and then you're also struggling to field the ball, that's not a good combination.
No, and he's had that actually twice. He's overthrown a base.
Ooh.
I was watching the Twins on Monday night, and I think the broadcast even talked about it. Has pitcher defense been an issue in the early going? Do you know, where they're just flubbing throws to first and not fielding the baseball?
Yes, 3 balks, 1 blown kiss, which is probably the most disgusting stat. They've had at least 2 balls just thrown over, like airmailed to first. 1 was from Jackson, and like also the worst possible timing. I can't remember the first one where it happened, but it was just one of those like, are you kidding me? This happened again. It's mental errors, which is really frustrating, because if you look at like the games they quote should have won, and we all have those games, the Twins should have won, but Jax threw the ball away, or Pablo Lopez threw the ball into center field, the Twins would have 3 more wins. The problem is those are actual losses. And when you're 7-12 in April, you can't win. Like, the cliche is you can't win the division in April, but you sure as hell can lose it. And that's how you do it. You dig this deep of a hole that you can't climb out of. You can't keep doing this crap. But yes, pitcher defense has been horrible. Regular
What about-
defense, also not great.
What about weighted blown kisses plus?
Leading the league, let me tell you.
Okay.
The immediate results were not great. Simeon. All right. Next up, believe it or not, the White Sox. We come across as really harsh on the White Sox at Orin. We love you, I promise you.
I mean, I'm just as harsh on them, so it's fair.
But there are 2 bright spots on the pitching staff, so I kind of wanted to shout them out. One, Martin Perez figuring this stuff out.
Yeah, he is an older gentleman relative to MLB players, 34 years old. So ideally, what we would love to see happen is, continue this trend of pitching efficiently and minimizing the runs, so that for half a season, so that we could get something for him at the deadline. And during that time, if he can, impart whatever wisdom he can to the younger guys, that would be great. It's hard to tell what actually goes on in the clubhouse. There have been some pitchers during those, like in-game interviews talking about the young guys are mentioning that he's, great to pick his mind and stuff like that. It sounds kind of just like the canned answers that all baseball players give about, veteran pitchers. But, it's still good to hear. It's better to hear than, him having like an ERA of 10. Although, it's not more than, one bad start away from that. But so far, he's been good. And then the other surprise pitcher has been Shane Smith. In 3 starts, he's had 3 good starts, and he's kind of gotten a little unlucky because he's when he got pulled, some inherited runners scored, so he would have been a little bit better if they hadn't. But he's looked sharp. He's got that kind of bulldog, kind of like a little bit of a Garrett Cole composure on the mound, like, shows emotion, but it kind of takes it very seriously. Like, it looks like he shows emotion, but is not necessarily having fun, if that makes sense. It's a way to describe him as a pitcher.
The strong silent type.
He's there, yeah, this strong silent type, like Gary Cooper, exactly. So yeah, a few bright spots, and over the course of the season, there are inevitably going to be a few of these bright spots. So I'll give them their recognition when it's due. But as you said, for the White Sox, you don't have to. It's never going to take that long to go over the bright spots.
I did want to go to Martin Perez for just a second because, part of me thinks this might actually be sustainable. If you look at his pitch mix, they've clearly told him he needs to use his cutter and his changeup more and his sinker a lot less. The results so far, you can't argue with. Last year, his expected ERA was 5.38. It's down basically a run in a 1.4 runs. His K percentage went up 6%. His walk rate, that's not what you want to see, but even just his expected ERA, you can succeed. That will play. The worry is his fastball is averaging 88 miles an hour. So we'll see how sustainable that is with him. But this does, there are actual changes. So maybe they have unlocked something with Martin Perez and they might actually get something back for him, but we'll see.
It doesn't look like he really throws a fastball, though. So the velo isn't really too much a concern.
Right.
And he's more of a location guy anyway. In terms of being sustainable, I don't think he's going to have a career year at age 34, as much as that would be awesome. But, if he can keep that ERA under 4, then I think since he's a known quantity around the league and he has playoff experience, that, when the injuries start to pile up for actual defenders, he might become someone that could eat innings or at least, buoy a team down the stretch if they need a little support getting through to the playoffs. Not necessarily. I don't think he would start in the playoffs for anybody, but we could probably get a lottery ticket for him if he keeps it under 4 or under 5, maybe even. We'll see how how desperate teams get.
All right.
I was impressed. Real quick, I was impressed looking at his stats there that you guys had up there. He's only 3 years removed from a 2.89 ERA in 196 innings. So I had remembered Perez as a guy, track record. He's been around for quite a while as a vet, but
maybe I'm just noticing. Maybe I'm just not, but like that happened in Texas, like his random all-star appearance.
Yeah.
The Rangers, for some reason, can find a 30-year-old pitcher, middling pitcher. They did it to like Kyle Gibson. They did it to Martin Perez. They can somehow elevate these very average or below average like pitchers for a year and make them an all-star. I don't know. Maybe it's
unless they're Corey Kluber, but I guess he was better than he was too good. They need to get the average guys. That's their problem.
Well, yeah, the best trade, not the best trade in Cleveland Guardians history, but
it's up there.
Certainly up there.
It's pretty good.
It's not the best. I could think of at least one more, but it's up there.
Well, not like the Royals also fleeced Texas. I mean, the Rangers also won a World Series, so like, but the Royals got Cole Reagans, so I don't know. Everyone wins, I guess, except for the Twins, because the Twins never win. I'm not bitter. Okay, next up, I just wanted to go over the schedule the next 2 weeks. We'll do predictions, and then I think we're going to wrap this one up. So this is actually going to be a pretty long episode. We're over 2 hours, so we should probably wrap it up because you guys are probably sick of hearing us by next time. But this time I'm going to share the screen. In division order in the next couple of weeks, the Guardians are going to go to the Orioles, the Pirates, the Yankees, and finish with the Red Sox. So enjoy your East Coast trip. You take a break from the AL Central. We're going to see how good that Cleveland offense and pitching has been. I know Oren pointed out that all of the competition has been basically NL Central or AL Central division, but we'll see what happens. But after that, the Tigers, after losing, they just actually played the Royals. I'm sorry, they have the Royals, the Padres, and the Orioles. The Royals obviously have Detroit, go to Colorado, which the Rockies seem incredibly beatable at this point, and the Astros, who don't really seem all that great either. It is Mike Moustakas' 2015 champ giveaway. So, actually, quick, Sam, are you going to that giveaway? It is 2015 champ giveaway, Mike Moustakas.
I don't think I'll be going to that one, but I know they're doing a whole series of bobblehead giveaways this year. It is the 10th and the 40th anniversary of the Royals winning the World Series. So there's going to be a lot of stuff, a lot of opportunities for stuff like that. So
I'm very
probably
curious.
not this one, but in the future, I'm sure I'm going to have some piece of swag related to World Series championship.
I'm curious about this phrasing. Are they giving an entire Mike Moustakas away on the 26th, or just like a partial Mike Moustakas?
Yeah, you just get his aura. His sort of they sort of trap. Yeah, they sort of like trapped little parts of his soul into bobbleheads, and they're gonna give those away. Yeah. So.
Okay. Next up, stupid dad jokes aside, the Twins will play the Braves, who have been off to a terrible start, and then they go back to the White Sox and the Angels. So I don't want to say these are big series for April, but if the Twins can't be above 500 after facing a really bad starting Braves team and the White Sox and the Angels, it's going to be real hard to dig out of this hole. And
what you need to do, you need to say the White Sox keep finding new ways to lose, and then you'll win. That's how it works, right? It worked for the Red Sox.
Except the Twins find new ways to lose also. So this is just a wormhole that everyone's going to be sucked into. The White Sox, finishing up with the Athletics, go to the Red Sox, play the Twins, and then back to the A's. in Sacramento, which is anyone that's the first time an AL Central team has played in Sacramento, correct?
I'm very excited for that one. I mean, it's fun to have a couple like new, backdrops to see on the TV this year between Tampa and the A's. I know the Cubs had a series there, so I got to see a lot of the park there, and it looks like kind of the fans there in Sacramento, they're loving it for now, and it's minor league games are always have a different kind of vibe to them, and so playing in that stadium kind of brings it out, and so it's cool, but not long term, but it's cool for now.
I hope one of those teams makes the playoffs. That would be so funny. I want home playoff games in one of those stadiums.
I don't know. I really wonder what they do.
I think I have some bad news for you on that one, Lee.
I
Neither
just think
one of
it'd
those
be really
teams
funny.
Neither
How
one
many
of those
plane
teams
crashes
gets in
will
the
it
playoffs.
take?
If they did make the playoffs, do you think they would do neutral site?
Ooh, I don't know.
That's a good question, actually.
Like they might just play in Texas or something. I feel like they've been using Texas as neutral sites a lot lately.
Anyway, this hypothetical will never happen, but that is an interesting point. Like I don't know.
You never know with the Rays. They're the Rays,
Yeah, the Rays always find a way sometimes, even with low payroll, and just they always manage to scrap themselves up somehow.
Does anyone remember, speaking of the Rays will do anything, when the Rays tried passing some BS that they were going to play half their games in Tampa one year and then half their games in Montreal?
That was
and
amazing.
they like
I do
were making
remember
very
that.
official statements about it. Like
Yeah, they had like a billboard up.
Wait, when was that?
Like
Was that
2 years ago, 3
Yeah.
years
Oh,
ago. It wasn't
That's
long.
right. That was so weird. I forgot about.
Yeah, it
totally
was a
forgot about
while
that.
ago.
They got a ton of backlash, and then I just never heard about it again.
As they should. The 5 Rays fans left should be pissed about that.
It was a stupid idea.
That's a half measure. If you're gonna move.
Well, and that's what it was really about. Is like, let's see if we can unbury the Expos for a couple weeks and see if we can't pull I don't know.
I guess the hurricane decided that for them. It seems.
Yeah.
I guess Tropicana's never coming back. It's
No.
a whole mess.
And it's not like the Rays owner, I don't think, is that disappointed about it either. But that's a different subject. Anyway,
Probably the best thing that ever happened to him.
so we need to just predict. We have 2 series coming up: KC at Detroit and White Sox in Minnesota. So we're just going to go by division first or by game first. So
Can I ask
Lee,
a question real quick?
yes.
What are we gonna do with the predicting of a split as far as these standings are concerned?
0.5? I don't know. What do you want?
I mean, I'm happy with saying that's a 0, but I think I just wanted to ask because
I think
there's
I'm
only
not
a
with
couple.
Trevor.
There's only a handful of 4-game series, so I don't
Well-
really think it matters.
Well, also to me, if the goal is to correctly predict the series and you correctly predict a split, that's a point.
Yeah.
That's what
No,
I was
I agree.
thinking.
Yeah, I think it's a pass-fail situation. You either predict it right or you don't.
Okay. Yeah. I'm okay with that. I just wanted to get the group's opinion.
Sure, fair enough. Anyway, 4 standings before we go in. We're all tied down here for those who are watching this on YouTube. Lee, Oren, and Sam are all tied at 5 points. Dan and I are bringing up the lead, are bringing up the back with 4 points each. So I don't, unless Lee, Oren, and Sam completely go the opposite of Dan and I, we can't take the lead, but we can certainly tie. With that said, Lee, who do you got? Kansas City and Detroit.
I think it's going to be, it's a 4-game series. I think it's going to be split. The Tigers' offense has been going down a little bit. We're going up against some really good pitchers. It's going to be rough to get hits off of those. So I think it's going to be split there.
All right. Oren?
I think Detroit takes 3 or 4.
In case it matters, the Detroit pitchers are going to be Olsen, Job, Mize, and Skubal.
Yeah, I mean 4 games set, they'll see pretty much all of them.
Pretty much. Skubal, for some reason, doesn't really do good against the Royals, which is why I bring it up. Except for the last game he pitched last season. But anyways, they have this number. It's so weird.
Okay.
Sorry.
This is
I don't know.
Sorry.
I went on a
Yep.
tangent there.
Sam.
Yeah. I'm gonna pick Detroit. The Royals are going in the wrong direction right now. I think they're a team that desperately needs a day off, and getting swept by the Yankees and then immediately going into a 4-game series against a division rival is kind of the opposite of what they need right now. So I as much as I don't want to see it, I do think I think Detroit's going to win 3 out of 4.
All right. Dan?
So what did we talk about tonight? We talked about the Royals starting pitching, and we talked about the Detroit Tigers offense.
Ooh, that's a good point.
At this point in time, I think I trust the Tigers offense more than I trust the Royals pitching. Detroit, 3 out of 4.
Someone's got to go against the grain.
Oh, yeah, and I'm the only one left. Thank you, Oren. Peer pressure. Thank you. You can change your vote, by the way.
I'm good.
I am really because I do like doing that. You know what? KC has had a lot of good. Actually, a split. I'm calling a split. What am I doing? There's a third option here. I don't need your peer pressure. I also apparently don't need to spell right. Split. Yeah, I'm going with a split. Boy, that is an underrated point. Whoever was that, Dan, that thought that the
Yes, sir.
yeah, very very well. Very very good point. Yeah, this is the two best tools in the division right now. Tigers hitting, KC starting pitching. That'll actually be fun to watch. All right. So I'm going to go for a split because that's probably the most likely outcome anyway, if you're just picking two teams. Next up, we have Chicago and Minnesota. Lee.
So a week ago, I honestly would have said Chicago, but I think Minnesota is figuring out enough of their offense. I think they're going to take it.
Oren?
I'm gonna say Chicago here. I think the Twins really need a break here, and knowing Minnesota sports, I don't think they're gonna get one.
Tell me about it. Sam?
I think this is a very important series for the Twins. I think they recognize that. I think this is a series that they need to get back on the right track, and I think they will do that, and I think they'll win this series. So put me down for Minnesota.
I was so ready for you to go for the bit to go the opposite direction, but Dan.
Is this a home series for Minnesota?
Yep, in Minnesota.
Let's go Minnesota.
Minnesota. And I have to put Minnesota because, for God's sakes, if they cannot, I've already said it, if they cannot beat the Braves when they're at their worst start probably ever, and they can't beat the White Sox and the Angels and have a winning record in those 3 series, the season's over. And I know it's really early to say that, but it's real hard to see this is a legit team if that doesn't happen. So on my own fandom and hope, I'm going to pick Minnesota. But we'll see how it happens and how many tears I'm crying into my beer later this week. But with that said, that's all of our predictions. This is going to be by far our longest episode. Hopefully this has been enjoyable. I thought this was a pretty good discussion, especially over the pitching and the Tigers discussion. So if you guys don't mind these longer episodes, I don't know, maybe leave a comment. We haven't had one of those yet. Maybe leave a rating, do all the good stuff that all of the social media people ask you to do. Do the same for us. We're not exactly professionals here, so help us out here, people. Who knows? I'm gonna get off my knee from begging, and unless anyone has anything else to say, I think we'll see you guys next time.
Sounds good.